Going to the topic, so in general, in the adult patient, when we use the conventional orthodontics, they are often they are often not satisfied with the visible metallic instrument that is placed in their mouth. So in that case, the clear aligner can be one of the very good alternative in such patients. In this seminar, we'll be talking about introduction, indication, contraindication, advantages and disadvantages, its classification, the various fundamental principles of the clear aligners, the attachment, types of attachment that is placed in the clear aligners, the Invisalign production process, the role of the clinician, how to control the good movement during the Invisalign treatment. We will talk about the interproximal reduction, and also we will talk about the various troubleshooting methods we can use in the clear aligners, and also we'll compare the clinical effectiveness of the Invisalign with the fixed orthodontics, conventional fixed orthodontics. So going to the introduction, the clear aligner is a removable appliance which is made of the transparent thin plastic material that is formed with the CAD/CAM laboratory techniques. And each aligner, this is planned to move the maximum of about 0.25 to 0.3 mm, and this is planned over the 2-week period. And the maximum movement that is that can be produced by the clear aligners is only 0.25 to 0.3. This is because of the stiffness of the plastic material that is used in the fabrication of the clear aligners. So the basic principle for the clear aligners is that the basic mechanism is the push force that the clear aligner uses to bring the tooth into the desired location, and the push force can be brought about by the contact of the clear aligners with the tooth, or with the tooth surface, or the attachment that is placed on the tooth surface. So in this figure, we can see the attachment has been placed, and through the use of this attachment, the clear aligners pushes the tooth into its desired location. So the CAD/CAM technology is combined with the virtual 3D model correction software to stage the tooth movements, and which is used for the correction of the malocclusion. And also the concern about the clear aligners has been raised because of the release of the bisphenol A and from the plastic aligners. However, in the laboratory in vitro study, no any potential cytotoxicity has been observed for this this release of bisphenol A. And for this, going to the history of the clear aligners, the first, it was produced by the case-ring, which is a thermoplastic tooth positioner, and it was progressively used to move the tooth into the desired position. And then the point is introduced the invisible retainer based on the same principle as used by the case-ring, and also the Sheridan proposed the method of the interproximal reduction, and through the use of the interproximal reduction, they move the tooth into the desired location. However, in the procedure that was done by Sheridan, is in its appointment, the new impression was needed to be taken before the clear aligner was fabricated. So it was time consuming and very tedious. So in 1997, the Align Technology, Santa Clara of California, they released the Invisalign system. And however, this Invisalign technology was only approved in 1998 by FDA for the use for the orthodontic use. So going to the indication for the clear aligners, it includes the mal-aligned and the mildly crowded teeth up to 1 to 5 mm. And also, if there is a spacing problem of 1 to 5 mm, we can use the clear aligners. Also, in the case of deep bites, mainly in case of cluster division 2 cases, in case of narrow arches, and also we can tip the molar distally. And also in case of the lower incisor extraction cases of we can use the clear aligners. However, the contraindication includes the crowding and spacing that is more than 5 mm, and if there is the skeletal anterior posterior frequency more than 2 mm when measured at the cuspid relation between the maxilla and mandible. And also, if there is centrifugation and centric occlusion discrepancy, then it is contraindicated. When there is more than 20 degrees of rotation, and also when there is open wide, it is contraindicated. Also, in the extrusion of teeth, also initially it was contraindicated. When the tipping of teeth is more than 45 degrees, it is contraindicated. And teeth with a short clinical crown, it is also contraindicated, because the short clinical crown has no enough of grip by the clear aligners so that it can move the tooth. And also the others with the multiple missing teeth, it is contraindicated. The various the advantages of the clear aligners is that it is clear and also comfortable. And because as no metal brackets or the wires are there, so it does not lead to the oscillation or the laceration of the mouth. And also, since the clear aligners are invisible, it gives confidence to the patient to smile. And also, it is technically much easier than the lingual appliances. And also, since it is removable, the better oral hygiene can be performed. And also, the clear aligners are ideal for the retreatment. Also, it has a shorter dental appointment, because the aligner can be directly given to the patient without the dental visit. And also, it has more precise treatment duration than the braces. And also, it can avoid the premolar extraction in case of the borderline cases through the use of the proximal reduction. And also, the less frequent visits is by the patient to replace the aligners, as the aligners can be replaced by the patient themselves. Whereas the disadvantages includes it is removable in nature, and since it is removable, the patient motivation is required, and it should be worn for a maximum of for a minimum of 22 hours per day, and it should be removed during the meals. And also, the two-point contact is difficult to maintain on the teeth to produce the complex tooth movement. And also, the misappointment and the deprived oral hygiene and the excessive bone enlargement, this can lengthen the treatment time and affect the quality of results. And also, the cost of the clear aligners is high. So there are clinical considerations currently in the clinical use of the clear aligners. So these are I have taken from the profit, and the clear aligner treatment this generally performs well in case of mild to moderate crowding with arch expansion, with interproximal reduction, posterior dental expansion, in closes the mild to moderate spacing, that is up to 1 to 5 mm. Also, the intrusion of incisors can be performed when there is 1 or 2 tooth segments. And the road incisor extraction cases can be performed through the clear aligner therapy. And also, the tipping of the molar distally can be performed with the clear aligner therapy. Whereas the bonded attachments are required when the extrusion of the incisors is required, when the incisor canine rotation correction is required, and also for the transmission of molars, the bonded attachments are required. And the attachments as well as the modified aligners is generally required in case of the premolar extraction case, molar correction, in case of the deep bite and the open bite. Whereas the clear aligner therapy does not perform well in case of the prolonged treatment in the children, also when there is highly placed canines, and also when there is a severe rotation. And also when the severe rotation is in the rounded tooth, then the clear aligner therapy does not perform well. So going to the classification of the Invisalign system, there are basically 5 types of the Invisalign system, and this includes the Invisalign full, and the Invisalign full it provides the maximum flexibility in the treatment of wide range of the mark occlusions. The Invisalign anterior, which is used for the correction of the crowding in the maxillary and mandibular anterior teeth, that is from canine to canine, and when there is the crowding of the spacing of 4 mm or less in the arch. Whereas the Invisalign right uses the Invisalign uses the clear aligners sequence of generally 14 aligners or less, and the Invisalign teen is generally used in case of the teenage patients. And the specific feature of this Invisalign teen is that it has a unique feature that addresses the patient compliance, the natural eruption of the permanent teeth, and also the control of the root movement. And there is another Invisalign system, that is the behavioral retainers. And these behavioral retainers are generally fabricated by the Invisalign company itself at the end of the treatment as a retainer. So now let's go to the basic fundamental principles of the Invisalign, and it includes the 5 basic principles, and we'll be discussing each one by one. So the first one is the aligners only work by pushing the teeth, and that is they don't pull. So while pulling the tooth using the Invisalign, this will disengage from the tooth. Because of this, the extrusion of the generally the maxilolateral incisor is difficult as the maxilolateral incisor has a small surface area for the aligner to grab either on the palatal or the labial surface. So if we can develop the appropriate push surface on the tooth, the chances of the tooth movement in the desired direction will increase greatly. So as in this case, the canine of the both side is mesopalatally rotated. So when the push surface can be applied in the palatal aspect of mesial side, and another push surface can be applied from the distal side, distal labial side, then the correction of this rotated canine can be performed. So and this was performed exactly the same, and thus we can see the correction of the rotation of the canine bilateral rotated canine. The another principle is that the multiple movements are produced at the same time. That is the simultaneous different movements, that is the torquing, rotating, and aligning can be performed at the same time using the Invisalign system. For example, in this case, the right side of the maxillary canine is in the crossbite, so the torquing, rotating, and the aligning of this tooth can be performed simultaneously at the same time through the use of the Invisalign. So this is a correction after the torquing, rotating, and aligning of the one feet that was initially in the crossbite. Now the another principle is that the anchorage is required for the efficient movement. The term anchorage in case of the Invisalign system is used differently. For example, in case of the correction of the curve of speech, in case of the mandibular arch, in case of this case, the intrusion of the mandibular incisors is required. However, when the intrusion of the mandibular incisors is done using the Invisalign system, the clear aligners will be disaccorded from the posterior teeth. So in order to provide the grip in the posterior tooth, the attachment is placed so that there is a proper grip in the posterior tooth, and the displacement of the aligner is not possible from the posterior aspects. And thus, through the proper grip, through the attachment that is placed on the, in this case, the premolar, the intrusion of the incisors can be performed through the use of this anchorage system. Now the another principle is that the over-engineering CLINCHECK plan is a must in case of the clear aligners. And this over-engineering means that when the Invisalign, it's just like the straight wire system, which means in which the different adjustment is required in case of from patient to patient. And this means that each Invisalign system should have the different individual differences which will move the teeth into the desired position. And the example of this Invisalign system is that, this over-engineering is that in case of the conventional fixed appliances, we generally place the reverse curve of as well in order to correct the deep curve of speed. So in case of deep curve of speed, generally the reverse curve of archway is placed. However, when the reverse curve of speed is placed, we don't want the tooth to take the mandibular arch to take the shape of the reverse curve. After the placement of the reverse curve of archway, we generally place this reverse curve of archway until the level of the archway is flat. Similar is the case in case of the Invisalign system. The CLINCHECK is programmed in such a way that the lower incisors are intruded, and the curve of speed is flat. Is obtained. Now generally this over-engineering method is generally includes two areas in case of the Invisalign system. One is adding the additional reverse curve of speed in the lower arch, which we have already discussed, and another is in the case of the extraction case in the Invisalign system. So when in the case of the premolar extraction case, generally when the retraction is performed, there is the loss of torque and the tipping of the incisors. So in such a case, the addition of the torque before the retraction should be performed in the CLINCHECK program, so that there is no loss of torque during the retraction of the incisors. So when we look at the CLINCHECK plan, we are looking at a graphic representation of the forces being applied to the teeth rather than the prediction of the final tooth position. So the CLINCHECK program, this is a force system, but not the teeth. Now another principle is the teeth need a space to move from one place to another. So in order to move from the point A to B, the tooth requires a space to move. And when the tooth is cannot be moved from cannot be moved. So we should, in such case, we should look for the in case of this, we should look for the tight contact that is present if there is no tracking of the tooth. Now there is another very important aspects in case of the clear aligners, that is the attachments, and these attachments are the integral to successfully treat the Invisalign treatment. And there are basically two types of the attachments. They are the optimized attachments and the conventional attachments. So the optimized attachments are generally placed by the software themselves, and they are generally customized individually for each tooth using the concept of the biomechanics. And these optimized attachments are designed to control the point of application of the force, the direction of the force, the amount of the force applied, and this optimized attachment has an active surface that varies in geometry based on the unique morphology of each tooth. So there are various types of the optimized attachments. The first one is the rotation attachment. The rotation attachment is generally used for the correction of the rotation of the canine and the premolar. For example, in this case, the canine is medially rotated, so the attachment is placed on the distal aspect of the canine, and also since the root is medially tipped, so this attachment will help us to tip the root of this canine distally, and also rotate the canine distal palatarily. So in this case, the canine is mesopalatally rotated. So when the attachment can be placed on the distal buccal side of the canine, it will help us to derotate the canine. Now another optimized attachment is the extrusion attachment, and this extrusion attachment is generally used in case of the open bite cases. And this extrusion attachment can be placed on a single tooth or the group of tooth. As for example, in this case, this patient has the open bite, so the extrusion attachment has been placed in the both the central and the lateral incisors, and through the use of the extrusion attachment, the correction of the open bite has been performed. Now another optimized attachment is the root contour attachment, and this root contour attachment is generally very challenging in case of the clear aligner system. And for this root contour attachment, generally it requires the 2-point contact for the correction of the root movement. So in this case, there is the missing lateral incisor, and for the missing lateral incisor, the implant placement was planned initially. So in this case, the canine has to be pushed distally, and that too has to be performed by the bodily movement. So in this case, the root contour attachment was the two attachment was placed. One was in the medial aspect, the gingival place attachment, and in the distal aspect, on the distal aspect, on the incisor aspect, another attachment was placed. And by placing the root contour attachment, we can move the tooth bodily. For example, however, but this is not the pure copper applied, because the force that is applied in the gingival aspect is more than the force that is applied on the distal aspect of the attachment. So since the forces are not equal, it is not a pure copper, but it will help us to move the tooth bodily. Sorry. So the canine has been pushed distally bodily, and the implant placement space has been created. Now there is another optimized attachment, that is the multiplane attachment, and this attachments appear on the general the maxillolateral incisors when the root movement as well as the extrusion are generally required. Also, there is a support attachment, and this support attachment was invented for the debite correction in case of the Invisalign G5, which introduced for the debite attachment correction in case of the premolar to support the leveling of the curve of the spine by placing the attachment on the premolars. And the Invisalign G7, they introduced the optimized lateral incisor attachments so that they can provide the support for the absolute intrusion of the either the central incisor or also the maxillary canine, maxillary central incisor, or the maxillary canine can be performed through the use of the support attachment on the maxillary lateral incisor. Now going to the conventional attachment, often there is a conflict in the Invisalign system whether to place the optimized attachments or not. So in such cases, the conventional attachments are generally placed. And the conventional attachment, this can be ovoid, rectangular, it can be beveled or non-beveled, and it can be oriented horizontally or vertically. And the conventional attachment can be requested, or we can also place them ourselves by using the 3D control in the CLINCHECK tool. So going to the conventional attachment, it has the different types of the attachment, that is the rectangular attachments, and these rectangular attachments are the passive attachments, and this may be vertical or horizontal depending upon the movement required in the tooth. So the vertical rectangular attachment, this generally the vertical rectangular attachment are generally not placed on the mandible incisors. But in case of the mandible extraction cases, when the proper alignment of the root is not ideal, so in such a case, the vertical rectangular attachment can be placed in order to correct the root inclination. There is another horizontal rectangular attachment, and this horizontal rectangular attachment is used for the root control, particularly in the buccal dimension to effect the buccal root torque on the molars. There is beveled attachment, conventional attachment, and the beveled attachment can be placed both on the vertical and the horizontal attachments. And the bevel is generally used the active surface to which the push force is applied, and this bevel provides a flat surface for the aligner to push against to effect the desired tooth movement. And the bevel can be placed on the gingival or the occlusal surface. When the bevel is placed on the gingival aspect, it generally when, for example, in this case, the bevel is on the gingival aspect. So since the bevel surface is the active surface, so this will result in the extrusion of the teeth. And when the bevel is placed on the occlusal aspect, and when the push force is applied from the occlusal aspect, the intrusion of the tooth will occur. And there is also the vertical conventional attachment, and this type of attachment is generally used for the root control, and it can be beveled majorly or distally in order to perform the desired tooth movement. There is also the conventional attachment, that is the ellipsoid attachment, and this generally ellipsoid attachment is used for the retention or the anchorage, and this is generally placed when there is not enough surface area on the tooth. For example, the peg-shaped lateral incisor, when there is no enough of surface area. Also, we can place on the lingual surface of the lingually inclined mandibular second molar. So in such cases, we can place the ellipsoid attachments. And this various type of attachments can be placed through the use of the option in the CLINCHECK program. That is, we can place, there is a option called the attach and cut in the on the CLINCHECK program, and we can in such option we can see the various configuration of the attachment, and we can each drag and place the attachment on the desired tooth. And we can also reorient the aligner, attachment into the different direction. We can perform the clockwise or counterclockwise rotation of the aligner. We can perform the gingival or the rotation of the major or the distal movement of the attachment after dragging the attachment onto the tooth surface. Now let's go to the Invisalign production process. So for the Invisalign production process, the same diagnostic records as with the fixed orthodontic treatment is required. That is the record photographs, radiographs, and the dental cast is generally taken. And one important feature for the production Invisalign is that it requires the interval optical scan, also with the initial occlusion, or we can also take the impression with the silicone impression material, and maximum byte registration can be taken, and it can be sent to the it can be sent to the company, and this scan of the impression, photographs, and the radiographs, these are submitted to the company along with the doctor's initial prescription, and the production process begins with the interval scan. And all the impressions are generally used to create a 3D scan digital model of each dental arch. So at the company where the digital treatment facility, the technician will generally segment the individual teeth and will clean up the artifacts, and then the technician will move the tooth according to the movement will be staged following the doctor's prescription, and this staging of the CLINCHECK will be reviewed by the doctors and reviewed by the doctor. And once when the doctor is satisfied with the planned sequence of the aligners, the set of the digital model for the patient will be transferred to a cast production facility where a stereolithographic model for each step will be fabricated. So this is the stereolithographic model, and in this stereolithographic model, the Invisalign the clear aligner is fabricated, and in its cycle about 100 clear aligners can be fabricated in a single cycle. Thus, after the clear plastic aligner is formed over each model, the set of aligners is sent to the doctor. Now there is something called the in-house aligner system, and there is increasing interest now in the possibility of doing the aligner production in the doctor's office itself. However, it will require the basic program for the Invisalign production in-house. That is, it will be requiring the computer software to create the sequence of model. We will also require the 3D printer to make the models for each stage, and also we require the vacuum former unit to make the aligners. This is the 3D model printer, and the 3D model printer will be used for the production of the stereolithographic model. And in this stereolithographic model, we can fabricate the clear aligners. So the materials that is used for the production of the clear aligners include the variety of the thermoplastic polymers, mainly the polyethylene, polypropylene, and polyurethane. And this thickness of this this aligner material is generally 0.4 to 0.5 mm, and this thickness is generally before being thermoformed over the stereolithographic model. And when this this plastic material is thermoformed over the stereolithographic model, then the thickness of this plastic material will be further reduced, and this the final thickness will may affect the posterior characteristics of the aligner. For example, in this diagram, the different road diffraction has been seen. That is the continuous red line is the Duran aligner material. The dotted red line is the ANCHORAGE, and the dotted green line is the hard cast, and it shows the road diffraction of the clear aligner materials. And however, since in case of the clear fixed orthodontic, conventional fixed orthodontic treatment, our 90 wire has an effective force delivery range of the several millimeter, whereas in case of the plastic material, it's generally the limit for the force delivery is generally limited to only 0.2 mm according to the profit. So when the range is only 0.2 mm, for the 1 mm of the movement, we generally require 5 clear aligners to move the teeth into the desired position. So when 3 mm of the movement we will generally require 15 clear aligners to perform the desired tooth movement. And the special material, that is the smart track material, this is generally provided by the Align technology. And the special feature of this smart track aligner material is that it provides the constant force delivery over the 14-day period when compared to the standard aligner material. That is, it provides the constant force over the 14-day period by the smart track material when compared with the standard aligner material. And also, when the good control is generally difficult with the clear aligners, and the good control can be performed when the 2-point contact for the mesiodistal, the 2-point contact is done for the mesiodistal and the buccal good movement. So when so this is the center of resistance, and the clear aligners overlaps the tooth from the only the crown portion of tooth. So in order to move the teeth, bodily, the 2-point contact may be required. For example, when the palatal good talk is required, we can place the attachment. We can place the attachment in the gingival aspect of the labial surface, and we can place another force can be placed in the incisor aspect of the palatal aspect. In this way, we can push the we can provide the sufficient torque of the tooth. And also in case of the distal, in the case of the distal movement of the premolar, the two attachment can be placed. That is, one on the facial surface of the tooth, which will exert a distal force near the gingival margin, and another medial force can be applied closer to the cross strip. Another very important aspect of the clear aligner is the interproximal reduction, and the interproximal reduction is performed in case of clear aligner for the various purposes, and this includes the resolution of the dental crowding, and it can be used for the resolution of the tooth size discrepancy. When there is a small size maxillolateral incisor, we can either leave space for the restoration of the maxillolateral incisor, or we can perform the proximal stripping in the lower incisors in order to compensate for the bottom discrepancy. And also we can perform the minor anterior posterior correction through the proximal stripping when the molar relation is class 1, but the canine relation is somewhat not class 1. So in the proximal stripping can be performed in the premolar region, and you can retract the maxillary canine slightly in order to achieve the class 1 canine relation. And also the asymmetric proximal stripping can be performed in order to gain the dental midline, ideal dental midline, coinciding upper and lower dental midline. So the interproximal reduction can be performed, and it can be staged at various stages of the treatment, and it can be planned in the CLINCHECK. So the IPR technique can be prescribed in increment of 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, and 0.5 mm for contact area, and it can be performed in the increment over the several appointment. And the interproximal reduction can be performed through the use of the various techniques. We can use the diamond stripes or the interproximal gauges, and we can also use the diamond disc or the balls. Generally, the hand device is used when the interproximal reduction is generally 0.2 to 0.3 mm, whereas when the more amount of interproximal reduction is required, we can use the diamond disc or the balls. And also, we should be very careful when doing the proximal stripping, because in case of the triangular shaped tooth, these are generally more amenable to the interproximal reduction. Whereas when the shape of the tooth is have the long contact areas or the long mandibular incisors, these generally require the more exacting interproximal reduction. And also, when doing the Invisalign treatment, the patient should be monitored carefully to verify that the tooth movement is tracking with the series of aligners. And if the teeth are not tracking, we should investigate for the possible possibilities. And the possibilities could include: there is not enough wear of the aligners by the patient, there is insufficient interproximal reduction, if there is insufficient crown height or the shape to allow a grip on the tooth, And also when there is a wrong type of or position of the bonded attachment, or the movement is created in the CLINCHECK that is too far to be biologically possible. So when the when the proper tracking of the tooth movement is not done, so is not tracking properly. So in such case, a refinement or the mid-course correction can be done with a new intraoral scan, or we can also take the impression from the silicon material. And the revision of the treatment plan often is necessary when the tracking deviates from the treatment plan significantly. And in some of the cases, we can troubleshoot the treatment when the tooth movement is not tracking according to the treatment plan. For example, in this case, when the probable fit of the Invisalign is not possible in this case, so in this case, the aligner series can be given to the patient, and patient will be asked to chew on this aligner series, and after biting on this aligner series, the probable fit of the aligner can be obtained. And also in case of the severely rotated tooth, we can apply the copper force before the use of the aligner, so that the rest sequence of aligners can be the treatment can be performed in the rest normal of the aligners. And also the copper force can be applied during the Invisalign treatment. For example, in this case, the canine was not properly derotated, so this the elastic force was applied. The elastic force is applied during the Invisalign treatment for the correction of the rotation. And also, in case of the highly pressed canine, we can apply the elastic force from the buccal and the lingual aspect through the. So this is the voucher pontic can be created in the Invisalign system, and the elastic force can be applied from the buccal and the lingual aspect of the gingival press attachment. And also, we can place the segmental bracket system in conjunction with the clear aligners, so that we can correct the root inclination properly. And one of the main trouble that we can get in the clear aligner system is the development of the posterior open bite, and there are three main hypotheses behind this phenomenon. And these includes the thickness of the aligner, the premature anterior contact, and when there is lack of space in the aligner for the arch length reduction. So the first is the thickness of the aligner. So when there is the thickness of the aligner can result in the transient intrusion of the posterior teeth due to the aligner material, and this can result in the posterior open bite. So in such case, we can go to the nighttime wear in the retention phase to allow for the occlusion to settle, and also we can cut the aligner distal to the canine or premolar to allow the posterior tooth to erupt spontaneously. Also, the premature anterior contact can result in the posterior open bite, and the cause for the premature anterior contact can be tight opposite when there is inadequate torque, that is inadequate interincisor angle, or the incisor intrusion is not fully expressed. So in such cases, we can over-engineer, that is the default opposite can be set in the software to at 0.5 mm. Also, the adequate incisor torque should be built in the final occlusion, and also we can use the bite ramps or the optimized deep bite attachments. Also, we can place the pressure areas for the deep bite correction. Also, another cause for the posterior open bite is the lack of space in the aligner for the arch length reduction, and the cause for this can be because of the loss of inclination of the incisors during the space closure. Also, when there is unwanted intrusion due to the occlusion of the setup, and also when there is insufficient interproximal reduction during the space closure or the incisor retraction. And the clinical sign that is used when there is insufficient space in the aligner for arch length is that there will be intrusion of the medial course of the maxillary first molar, and often the aligner will bend due to the lack of space anterior posteriorly, and often the medial course of the first molar will intrude. So in such cases, the proper interproximal reduction should be carried out adequately and at the correct stage of the aligner treatment, and also we should be the adequate torque control in the finish occlusion, and also the proper staging for the space closure should be done. So in this case, when the space closure was performed through the use of the aligner, there was the generation of the posterior open bite in the molar area. So in this case, what was done is the aligner was caused distal to the second premolar, and the attachment was placed. Lingual button was placed on the first molar of both the maxillary mandible, and the elastic was used for the for the correction of the posterior open right. Also, in this case, the posterior open right was created, and in this case, what was done is that the aligner was cut distally of both the maxilla and mandible, and the settling elastics was used for the correction of the posterior open right. Now let's go some of the recent article that is checks for the effectiveness of the Invisalign when comparing the fixed orthodontic treatment. And this is the article by systematic review by Pape Dimitri et al. In 2018, who said that we found that the Invisalign might treat the faster mild non-extraction cases, but it will require more time than the fixed appliance when the treatment with the Invisalign is done for the more complex cases. And also the more additional attachment will be required when the body expansion of the maxillary posterior teeth is required, and when the degradation of the canine and premolar is required, and also when the extrusion of the maxillary incisor and overbite control is required, we can require more additional attachment. There is another systematic review that was done by Guerin Lopez et al. In 2019, and who said that the Invisalign and fixed appliance were able to alter the intercanine, interpremolar, and the intermolar width in the presence of cording. Whereas if the cording is more than 6 mm, then the incisors will tend to procline and protrude. And also, they said that for the molar distalization of for the molar distalization, an attachment is not required. And also they also said that the expression of the programmed movement is not fully accomplished with the Invisalign, as planned with the CLINCHECK program software. And also they said that there is better good control with the fixed appliances than the Invisalign system. And the majority of the tooth movement this occurs during the first week with the plastic systems. And they said that the buccal inclination and the occlusal contact are worse with the Invisalign system when compared with the fixed appliances. And the Kravis et al. In 2009 said that the mean accuracy of Invisalign for all the tooth movement was estimated at 41%. However, the measurement in this article was only done for the anterior tooth. So this is the recent article of AJODO, who said that which was done by Hawari et al. In 2020. That is published in AJODO recently, and we said that the mean accuracy of the Invisalign for the tooth movement is generally 50%, and the highest accuracy was observed for the buccal count tip, which was 56%, and the lowest overall accuracy was performed with rotation, that is 46%, and the accuracy for the mesial rotation of the mandibular first molar was 28%, and the distal rotation of the maxillary canine was 37%, whereas the intrusion of the accuracy for the mandibular incisors was 35%. And there is another article published recently was by Borda et al. In 2020, and they said that the treatment of the mild occlusion in the adolescent patient this is equivalent to the effectiveness of the clear aligners compared to the fixed appliances. And they also said that there is significant improved result in case of in terms of the tooth alignment, occlusal regulation, and the opposite with the Invisalign than the fixed appliances. And they also found out that the number of appointment and the number of the emergency visit in the Invisalign system was reduced. And also they found that the overall treatment time was showed the better outcomes for the treatment with the clear aligners than with the fixed appliances. So the attachments are generally required in case of the Invisalign system. So one of the authors, that is Thai et al. In 2020 performed the research, who said performed the research, who found out that there is the general desire for the clear aligners. So the people generally desire the clear aligners without the attachments, and if there are multiple attachment required in the clear aligners, then the patient prefers generally the clear brackets over the clear aligners when the multiple attachments is required. And also, since the interproximal reduction is a vital procedure in case of the clear aligners, so the D. Ferrish et al. He performed the He performed the research to study whether the interproximal reduction during the treatment and during the CLINCHECK program is similar or not, and they found that the interproximal reduction during in the clinically is much less than that planned during the CLINCHECK software. So during the finishing, various pliers are used, and this generally includes the dimple and the thermal pliers, which is generally used for the finishing, which is generally utilized during the finishing stages. And these pliers, that is the dimple and the thermal pliers, creates pressure points of the dimples in the aligner, and this will notch the teeth into the positions which are already built into the aligners. So these are the dimple and thermal pliers, and through the use of this plier, we can place the pressure point. For example, in this case, the pressure points are placed on the distal aspect of the incisors, and this can be used to move the teeth into the desired position during the finishing stage. And we can also place the copper force for the during the finishing stages. For example, the copper force is applied in the distal buccal aspect, pressure point is applied, and from another lingual side, the mesolingual side, the pressure point is placed. So we can move the tooth into the desired position. And also there is various series of pliers that is given by Rentry Essex company, and that these various pliers will help us to make the various indentations into the aligner for the tooth movement during the finishing stages. And these pliers will generally require the preheating of approximately 175 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit before the use. And also the Wolf-Ferry company has 4 different types of the pliers, and this includes the teardrop precision cut hook plier, and also includes the wall punch precision cut bottom cut out plier, and also this includes the vertical rotation in out plier and the horizontal root torque plier, which are generally used during the finishing stages. And we can also advise for the virtual C-chain, and these virtual C-chain are generally demanded from the clear liners, so that the tight anterior contact can be obtained from canine to canine during the finishing stages. Now there is something called the overcorrection versus overtreatment. So the overcorrection, this generally refers to the individual tooth movement, whereas the over treatment means that the final occlusion in the plan. So the overcorrection means the setting of the individual tooth position in the plan that are beyond the clinical outcome, and this overcorrection is generally required when there is when we are anticipating difficulty in the correcting the tooth position, and when there is a difference in the final tooth position is anticipated due to the lag between the tooth position intraorally and in the aligner. And when we suspect the potential relapse, then we can do the overcorrection during the software plan. And the overtreatment, as already said, this refers to the final occlusion in the treatment plan that is beyond the clinical outcome, and this is generally required in case of the open bite. So in case of open bite, we can over-engineer the CLINCHECK program of +2 mm over bite, and in case of the deep bite, we can over-engineer the bite up to 0 mm of reduction of the overbite. And also in case of the maxillary expansion, we can over-engineer such that the lingual course of the maxillary posterior teeth are contacting the vocal course of the mandibular posterior teeth. And also we can also make sure that there is adequate vocal root torque of the maxillary posterior teeth, so that it can counteract the effect of the molar tipping as the arch is expanded. And also in case of the premolar extraction cases, when the retraction is done, there is often the tipping and the loss of torque. So in such cases, over-engineering can be done, and the extra amount of torque can be placed in the anterior teeth during the anterior retraction, incisor retraction. So to summarize today's seminar, so we can compare the fixed appliances and the clear aligners. So that is the force generally exerted by the fixed appliance. This is a pull force type of tooth. Pull type of the force is applied in case of the fixed appliances, whereas the clear aligners generally applies the push type of force. And for the engagement in the fixed appliances, the archwire is placed into the into the bracket, and thus the thicker the wire, the better the engagement will be in case of the fixed appliances. Whereas in case of the clear aligners, plastic is wrapped around the teeth, and thus the more plastic is wrapped around the teeth, the better the engagement. And in case of the anchorage, in case of fixed appliances, this generally follows the principles of the Newton's third law, and that is the reciprocal anchorage. Whereas in case of clear aligners, the anchorage can be predetermined in the CLINCHECK program. In case of the fixed appliances, the extrusion is generally can be performed for the single teeth. For example, in the high place canine, the extrusion of the canine will result in the intrusion of the other adjacent tooth. Whereas in case of clear aligners, the whole segment of the extrusion anterior segment can be performed. And in case of the intrusion, when we use the continuous as well, the relative intrusion will only take place in case of fixed appliances. Whereas in case of the clear aligners, the entire segment for other selective intrusion can be performed in case of the clear aligners. And in case of for the torque, in case of the fixed appliances, both the labial and the lingual good torque can be applied. Whereas in case of the clear aligners, only the lingual good torque can be applied, and that too can be applied through the use of the power pieces. And for the good inclination and the fixed appliances, the control of the good inclination through the bracket posting and the archware can be done. Whereas in case of the clear aligner, the good control can be done through the attachment and also through the use of the virtual gavel bands. So this is the figure when there is high place canine, the extrusion of this canine will result in the intrusion of the adjacent tooth. Whereas in case of the clear aligner, the extrusion of the whole anterior segment can be performed through the use of the clear aligners. For the incisor inclination, the fixed appliances generally tend to procline on alignment, whereas the aligners perform the excellent control of the incisor inclination. And in case of the vertical control, this opposite and overbite, since there is proclination, the opposite and overbite will decrease with incisor proclination alignment. Whereas in case of the clear aligner, when there is minimal opposite and overbite, it will result in excellent vertical control. And also the midline correction is dependent upon the elastic wear in case of the fixed appliances, whereas through the use of the proximal stripping, asymmetric proximal stripping, it can be performed, it can be predictable in case of the clear aligners. And for the tooth size discrepancy, in the fixed appliances generally needs to be calculated or adjusted for the way through the treatment, whereas in case of the clear aligners, the tooth size discrepancy can be accurately calculated using the CLINCHECK software. So these are my references. Thank you.